You're listening to The Exchange, brought to you by Corcoran's Furniture, now based in Newcastle West, Killarney, Tralee and Cahersiveen. Corcoran's Furniture, leading the way in home furnishings and interiors.
Welcome back to The Exchange Show. West Limerick 102 FM and myself, Kieran McAuliffe, with you up today up till 1 o'clock. Thanks for tuning in. Now I'm delighted to be joined in studio by Mary Brown, volunteer support worker with the Children's Grief Centre here in Limerick, and Helen Cullinan, the CEO of the centre. Before we chat to the award winner Mary, we will have a chat to Helen, who's the CEO of the Grief Centre. Helen, for everyone listening, I suppose, thanks for coming into the studio. First of all, for everyone listening, tell us a bit about the Children's Grief Centre in Limerick.
Well, first of all, thanks very much, Kieran, for inviting Mary and myself. And we are very proud in Limerick that are in the Children's Grief Centre that Mary won the award. So it's great she's here with us.
Yeah.
Now, the Children's Grief Centre was established in September 2009.
Yes.
To support children and young people between the ages of 4 and 18 where parents have separated, divorced, or where there has been a bereavement. Initially, it was set up as a kind of a pilot project, and I suppose looking back now for the last 13 years, we're really surprised with, I suppose, the demand for the service.
Yes, yeah, you didn't realise, I suppose, when you set it up that there was such demand for the service.
No.
It's brilliant, yeah, well done to everyone involved. Where, just for the listeners that don't know, where are you based in Limerick?
See, we are based in Limerick City, and initially our plan was, because we have a board of management, and our plan was that we would cover Limerick, Clare and Tip. But there, a number of years ago, we were the National Lottery Good Causes Award.
Oh, brilliant, yeah.
For the very first year. And that programme was televised. And as a result, we now have children coming from Offaly, Cork, Galway. We had a child, believe it or not, that came from Fermanagh.
And Helen, sorry to interrupt you there, but I suppose it shows that there's a need for this service. And I suppose, are you the only centre in Ireland doing this, or is there obviously there's a few more centres, I suppose, is there?
No, Kieran, sadly, we're the only. People will tell you, and I think, I suppose in a previous life I worked as a social worker with the HSE, and you quickly learn that there's little or no services for children. And even yesterday, I had a phone call from a lady in Dublin who is willing to drive down to Limerick for her children to be seen. Yeah. And I think that's showing the lack of services.
It's sad, but it's great that the service is there, and fair play to you for continuing it over the last 13 or 14 years. Like it's I suppose, as we're coming to that, I suppose, what services does the centre provide, I suppose, and give us an outline of it or a description.
So, Kieran, we're very much into that. We're not offering therapy or counselling, that we're offering support, that when children are grieving, either due to a bereavement or separation or divorce, that's a normal process. They will grieve and they will be upset and they will be sad. So what we provide one-to-one. Yeah. And Mary will explain later on the type of interventions that we use. Thanks. But we meet the children on a one-to-one. But initially we meet with the parents. We meet with the parents on their own. We explain to them how we work. We obtain their consent. And equally, where there is separation or divorce, we look for the consent of both parents, because what we are learning from children whose parents are separated, and they tell us this over and over again, they very much feel they get caught in the middle.
I think speaking to children, I suppose that is a problem, and speaking to parents, I think that's a problem. But I suppose it is a great reach out for the children. I suppose it's a difficult thing for any family to go through. It is separation, and I suppose it's great that service is there for the children.
Yeah, and the children can cope, Kieran, and they tell us this, but it's when they feel they get kind of caught in the middle and have to choose between both parents.
And I suppose there's long-term effects to children if they don't get the help they need when they're younger. There's probably long-term effects down the road as well for them.
And that is true, and it's a fact of life. And that's why I suppose we are very passionate about the work we do in the centre, in the sense that we see it as early intervention. And I had an experience there a couple of months ago, a 14-year-old who I had worked with when she was 7, and she chose to come back at 14. And what surprised me was she remembered coming at 7, and in her case, her mum and dad had separated. But I remember she said to me, Helen, she said, I came here when I was 7 and you helped me a little. It was so funny. I wasn't going to get a big head. You helped me a little, she said, but I'm now 14 and I feel I need to talk about it again. But because she had attended when she was 7, it wasn't as big
It was
an
big
issue.
a problem, yeah. But yeah, it was great that the services were there.
Yeah.
I think early talking is definitely the way to go. I suppose it's important to mention, we discussed this already, I suppose it's important to mention the centre covers all the Limerick area and beyond, as you've told me already, So like I suppose you're covering all of Ireland really, like you're providing a service to
I'd say
your doors are open to everyone, I suppose.
I'd say we'll become a national children's grief centre down
that's
the road.
Great, yeah. Do you still get national lottery funding? You do?
No, we don't.
No.
And I'm always asked how are we funded, and actually we have to raise 90% of our funding. And like lots of charities,
well, of course,
but we're extremely lucky. We have 2 part-time fundraisers, Carol and Orla.
Yeah.
They work very hard. I suppose this year has been a challenge, and last year with COVID, because we're building a new children's grief centre.
Oh, very good.
And we're going to have our own premises.
Yes.
So the Mercy Congregation, as you know, I'm a member of the Mercy Congregation.
Yeah.
They very kindly gifted us a beautiful stone brick building on O'Connell Avenue.
Yes.
And
that's in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have an architect in place, and the construction work started last year at a cost of 3.25 million.
Oh, big money, yeah.
Big money, and I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the support from the JP McManus Pro-Am.
JP, I'm only here in the radio station 3 months, and the amount of times that man's name has come up inside here with different interviews. He's an incredible man, and he's just does so much for charities and organisations, and it is great. Fair play to him, yeah. Yeah,
we would not have been able to start it, but the building started last September, and I was on a visit there during the week, and the contractor has told me they're hoping to be finished the construction work by September, October, and that we should be moving into it by January or February next year.
That's great. Yeah.
So it's beautifully designed. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you'll have more space, I suppose, and more you'll be able to provide more services, I suppose, and out to a wider community, I suppose. Yeah,
well, we're going to have double the amount of space.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
So it's going to be great.
When that opens, you'll be having an official opening. We'll head out to it and we'll have a chat with you again. Yeah, to be nice to. I suppose onto that question is, how many volunteers have you at the centre? And
well, start off with our board of management. All of them are volunteers, and then we have a number who would come in, like Mary, and we call them support workers. So they work with the children on a one-to-one. Then today, as I left the centre today, Mary Morden comes in and does admin for one day, and Mary Fagan. So roughly about 12 that'll cover doing the admin work.
Yeah, and they're all volunteering.
They're all volunteering. And we wouldn't be able to continue without our volunteers, and that's a fact. Yeah,
it's the same here. We're all volunteering here as well, and it's all volunteering, and that's what makes organisations and companies and the success that they are. I suppose if someone wants to fundraise for you, Helen, and I presume you would love to hear from them and tell us about any fundraisers that are coming up.
Well, of course, we would really love to hear from people, and they could contact. Let me look at it here now. I did bring it out because I was hoping you would ask me that question. Contact us on it's fundraising@childrensgriefcentre.ie.
Yeah. Have you a phone number there as well?
We have a phone number for our fundraisers, Carol and Orla, 087 457 8030. And if I could just mention, Kieran, presently the AIB Community Fund is currently open. Now it's actually this tonight will be the last evening, but we'd ask people if they could support us and nominate us. So if you log on to the AIB website and if you nominate us, and you'll find our charity number on our website.
Yeah. So they can go on to the AIB website, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, we'll get that. We'll check that out. How important is it? I suppose we've kind of touched on this already. I suppose how important is it for children and youths to get help regarding bereavement, one-to-one support, separation and divorce, one-to-one support, and when we can talk maybe about community education and tell us how that works. But I suppose we've kind of touched on it already. I suppose the importance of getting the help and support at a young age.
Yeah, and I suppose what's important, Kieran, is not all children will need support. Like that's very important. And even within families, you might find where one child will come and another won't, because we all grieve differently. But what we got to remember is that grief is a normal process.
Of course.
The Queen Elizabeth has a lovely quote, and she says, and I really like it: "Grief is the price we pay for loving." And I believe here in Ireland we are excellent at funerals and removals, but we go downhill after that.
I think I agree 100% with you. Yeah, I mean, I suppose is it an older generation thing? Maybe this we don't know how to handle the grief, or we don't know how to deal with it. Maybe do you think that is it? Or?
No, I wouldn't say it's an older thing. I can say it's in all generations. We want to fix the people, and we want them to be smiling. And following a bereavement, you won't be smiling for a long time.
No.
And we need to allow, whether it's children or adults, time to grieve.
Yeah. So I suppose what's the best way if there's families listening there today to this, Helen, today, and they feel that they're after suffering a bereavement, or that there's a divorce happening or a separation happening in the family? What's the best way for the families to approach it, or the guardians in the case if the parents have passed away? I suppose what's the best way to contact you, or how they go about it?
Well, number one, they can phone us. Unfortunately, like many agencies, we have a waiting list. But I think when that comes to grief, that's not an issue, because if you saw a child too soon, a week, a month, 2 months after a bereavement, they're not actually ready because they're still in shock.
Yeah.
So what I'd be asking parents or guardians to phone us, they'll get to talk to myself or to Teresa. We can give some advice over the phone, and then we can put the child on our waiting list.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, and there's also a community education. Tell us a bit how that works.
Yeah, what we found, and again, we're a very small staff, Kieran, there's only 4.2 staff, but as this centre evolved, we found that lots and lots of schools, especially primary schools, were contacting us looking for support and guidance.
Yeah.
So we have gone in and still go into a lot of schools, and this gives me an opportunity. On the 14th of September, we're going to be launching a bereavement toolkit for primary school teachers.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
And this toolkit will help teachers and support teachers how to support bereaved children in the classroom. The toolkit initially is going to be on bereavement, but our next one will be on separation and divorce.
Yes, and that'll be available on the website, I presume, is it?
Yeah, our plan is to launch it and then to put it on the website.
Brilliant. Yeah, get in touch with me again when you do that, and we might get in a few schools maybe to have a chat about our principals and to talk about it again, maybe just to kind of let people know that it's there for them, and let principals know, I suppose, that it's there for them as well. You've a brilliant website there that provides lots of helpful information to families. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, we put a lot of work into our website. It's expensive to do it, but it's worth it.
It is. Look at it last night. It's excellent.
Yeah.
Very well done to everyone involved in it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and a lot of time people don't know where to turn, and they don't know where to find the information, or even when we say a parent, they say, what do you say to the children, or following a bereavement and separation as well. So on a continuous basis, we put up resources that people have access to.
Yeah. That's great. I suppose we'll give out the contact number there. I have it up here, I think, in front of me anyway. 061 224 627. Is that right?
That's it.
And the email address is info@childrensgriefcentre.ie. Now, before we start talking to the next guest, I want to congratulate Mary Brown, who recently received a Volunteer Ireland in Children and Youth Section Award. Mary, thanks very much for coming in today, and congratulations on your award.
Thank you, Kieran.
You're welcome. Mary, tell us, I suppose, how long you've been volunteering with the Children's Grief Centre.
I suppose I've been volunteering for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I was a teacher and a guidance counsellor, and when I finished in the school, a friend told me about Sister Helen.
Yeah.
And I made contact with her and have been there since.
Yeah. How did you get involved there, or what made you get involved, I suppose, or how did you decide to get involved? I suppose you kind of.
Well, I suppose.
Did you see? I suppose, did you see that there was a need for this kind of service through the school, like, or was it?
I suppose through my work in schools and working with children, I knew there was a need really for children who had suffered from separation and also from loss. Through losing a parent or a sibling.
Yeah.
So I was aware that there was a need out there.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I suppose, what's your role as a volunteer at the centre, and how do you help the children and the young people?
As Helen said, I'm a support worker for the children. And I listen and I support them. This is done through a variety of interventions. I use sand trays, clay, painting, colouring, books and stories, games, and I suppose listening to the children, they feel heard.
Yeah, of course.
And talking to them, they're better able to understand the situation, and they learn that others have similar experiences.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
and
they get to meet. They get to meet.
As normal.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Mary, but they're supposed to get to meet people that have gone through similar circumstances in different homes.
Yes, when we're speaking to them, they realise that there are other children
that they're not on their own.
Who come,
like
and they're not on their own. So that helps them, and they also, when they talk about their fears and their anxieties, they find it a sense of safety in the place, because it is a safe place.
It's a safe environment, and they can talk and chat, and whatever they discuss, I suppose, obviously stays with you.
Yes,
and
there's a trust.
That's a great trust for them as well, and a great outreach for them as well, I suppose. I suppose onto the award. I suppose how did you win the award, and were you nominated by the centre, or was it? How did it work?
I was nominated by Helen and the centre.
Yeah, fair play. Yeah. I believe you made the shortlist then, and how did you find out you had won?
Well, I was driving home on a Tuesday when I got a phone call from Volunteer Ireland.
Oh, yes.
And they told me that I had won. So
yeah, you must have been delighted.
I was delighted.
It was nice to get
surprised.
It was nice to get the recognition there. I suppose fair play to you, Helen, first of all, for nominating Mary, and I suppose it was nice to get the recognition for all the work you're doing in Mary. On behalf of all the listeners to the station and everyone here at the station, I want to congratulate you again and thank you for all the work you have done over the last 10 years. Thank you, Helen, as well, and I suppose, and thank all the volunteers. You're providing a huge service to families and to children, and keep up the great work. And I just want to acknowledge that, and on behalf of all the listeners, I think we'll acknowledge it as well, and that they'll all echo those comments. I suppose back to, if there's any people listening today and they were thinking of getting involved in the Children's Grief Centre, what advice, Mary, or encouragement would you give them?
I suppose they would need to be experienced, really, in listening. That's very important, that they would have some experience in and training, working with children. So that would be the first thing. To have an interest in that area, and be able to listen to children and connect with them. I suppose if they wanted to give you a ring, they could have a chat with you as well, and talk and see how would they like it, and would they like to take it on. We can come back to you again in Helen and that anyway. Mary makes an 100-kilometre round trip every week to volunteer at the centre each week. How many hours do you volunteer for? And if anyone was thinking of volunteering, how many hours do you give of your time every week, Mary? Well, I do one day a week. And
100 round kilometre trip. That's a fair dedication for you.
Well, I love the work, so
I know,
I don't
think
of it that way. If I were nearer, I probably would do more. So it isn't a problem, really.
No. So how many hours? It's up to, if a volunteer wanted to volunteer, how many hours could they give? Like, I suppose it's up to themselves, kind of. If they could volunteer 5 or 6 hours a week, I suppose he'd be only delighted to hear from them.
Yeah, and it varies, Kieran. You know, some people like Mary volunteers one day, other people 2 days, and we prefer someone to kind of put, we say, a day in, because otherwise, it's more difficult having.
It's easier for you to manage it as well.
Yeah, from an admin side.
Of course, of course. I suppose, Mary, back to you again. What would you say to any family members or guardians or parents listening and feel that their children may need this service? What would you say to them? If there's a family there that has suffered bereavement listening to this today, or that they're going through a separation in the family, what encouragement would you give to the parents, I suppose, or the guardians, and I suppose to the children to kind of reach out to your services?
Well, I would encourage the parents to make a phone call and get in contact with the centre. They will be helped and supported from the very beginning, and maybe have to put on a waiting list.
Is there a long? Sorry to interrupt you, Mary. Is there a long waiting list, or?
We have.
We have a long waiting list. We roughly have about 280 children on the waiting list.
Right.
Now, to date, we've seen 1,700. But in saying that, children, they're roughly on the waiting list between 6 and 9 months. So,
which I suppose, as you said already, Helen, is a waiting list. A waiting list is going to be everywhere, but if you need to deal with the problem, you need to wait on the waiting list, and I think there's a waiting list for everything, unfortunately, in Ireland at the moment. But I think, you are providing a service to them, and they'll just have to allow for the wait, because the help is coming for them, I suppose, and that's the main thing.
We do now, just to mention, we do prioritise teenagers. So we would prioritise teenagers.
Yeah. That's it. I suppose another question there for Helen or Mary, whichever one of you want to take it. Volunteer Ireland supported 9,811 organisations with their volunteering activities last year. I suppose, tell us what Volunteer Ireland do for charities like the Grief Centre.
I suppose simply Volunteer Ireland, it's the umbrella for all volunteer centres throughout Ireland. So they support, because in Limerick now there's a volunteer centre, and so they support them, and in relation, we say, to the awards that Mary received, that they want to acknowledge the wonderful work that so many volunteers engage. There wouldn't be.
No,
I think the country would close down if volunteers.
It is an Irish thing, definitely. I think that everyone is willing to volunteer, and everyone is willing to rally into groups and organisations, and like your organisation is doing great work. Everyone is willing to help, and it is great. It is an Irish thing, definitely, I think, but it is brilliant, yeah. So Volunteer Ireland are a great support to you anyway.
They are, and a great resource to have.
Yeah, that's great, yeah. I suppose I just haven't looked through the website there. I suppose there's lots of useful resources on it, like there's grief activities, bereavement, separation, teenage support and advice. I suppose just one thing to mention is that you don't support families that suffer from suicide. Is that correct?
No, that's right, Kieran. And the reason for that simply is 13 years ago when we were founded, our steering committee, which was made up of 15 professionals, they didn't want us to be, we say, repeating work that was already in existence. For example, like Rainbows runs groups. So it was that we wouldn't be running groups, because you have Rainbows already running groups for bereaved children and children whose parents. And at the time you had Console in Limerick. So they didn't want us duplicating services.
Of course, yeah. I suppose any fundraisers coming up?
I suppose we're hoping to now the AIB.
Yes.
We're hoping, and then there is.
Any idea how much you'll get out of that, or what way does it work? Or
see, people have to vote for us, and so you never know. You never know, yeah. But it's great, I suppose, and fair play to AIB and and JP McManus and everyone that helps out in the National Lottery. I suppose they provided a lot of funding to charities like yourselves and groups like. Well, I can't say that we've got a lot from the National Lottery. We've just been truthful with that. We haven't. Because I think how they work, they direct the money towards the government and they give it out.
I think that system, it doesn't seem to be working, and I think the government and the National Lottery need to look at it. I think a lot of charities, they've seemed to got a once-off payment, and that seems to be it, and there doesn't seem to be, that system doesn't seem to be working. But
like, we got funding from them when we won the award, but he was, as a result of, we received 35,000, but it was because we came number one in Ireland, and we were the first National Lottery Good Causes.
What year was that?
About 3 years ago.
Oh, 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was the first year of the National Lottery Good Causes Award. Yeah,
I know they're coming up again there. I had a charity, and I think it was Down Syndrome Limerick. I had them in a couple of weeks ago there, that they were nominated as well. But and
they were nominated for the volunteering. Can I just say, Kieran, we're actually, I met the chairperson, whose name now, Elisha, I think. I met her at the Volunteer Ireland Awards. So we're going to do a giant fundraising in September, October.
Very good. Make sure you let me know when that is. What that
with
is.
the local group.
And we'll join up and we'll promote it here for you as well. I suppose anything else you want to add to that? I suppose if there's anyone wants to fundraise for you, you'd be delighted to hear from, as we said already.
We would be delighted. And I suppose just to explain to people, Kieran, is we don't charge for the service. Like, it is a free service. So and that's our ethos, and we feel it's very important.
Of course,
when people are separated or divorced, it can be very difficult to find 60 or 70 euro per session. So, and we want to continue that ethos, that people can feel free, that there's no pressure, and we don't. We leave a donation box in the waiting room, but we never know who donates. And
that's it. And it was how much is it roughly does it cost to run the charity a year, or do you know?
Last year now we have taken on a finance officer, and the reason for that is, first of all, we needed to have one, but number two was with the funding all around our new building. But in a way we have been spoiled, Kieran, because the Mercy congregation has paid for the last 13 years all our overheads. I'm working, I don't receive a salary and haven't received a salary for 13 years.
Fair play to you for all your work as well.
But I think we will be challenged when we move to our new centre, because then we will have to cover all the overheads.
Yeah, and you're going to be covering like, I suppose you're already covering a big area, but there's going to be demand more for the services, I think.
Oh yeah, because we have 4.2 staff and they need to be paid.
Of course,
and I suppose you're looking at 250,000, 300,000 a year.
A year, yeah, it's a lot of money. So if there's anyone out there who wants to fundraise, we'll give out the number there again, if 061 224 627, and whether you're listening in West Limerick or outside West Limerick, you can contact them, and you can email info@childrensgriefcentre.ie. Helen and Mary, anything else you want to add to that?
No, I want to thank you, Kieran, very much. We really appreciate it. I'm delighted that Mary is having the opportunity, and that the locals will hear of the wonderful work and service and the commitment that she gives to the Children's Grief Centre. The children, the children and parents, absolutely. Today I was in the waiting room, and there was a parent there, and she was just saying how, I think the little one was 7, how she was all excited when she woke up this morning that she was coming into Mary.
That's nice.
We so appreciate, Mary, all you have done.
Mary, I suppose just back to you on a final note, I suppose it must be very rewarding, I suppose, to see.
It is rewarding, but I wouldn't want to forget all the work that Helen does.
Yeah, Sister Helen, I think.
She's an amazing woman.
Yeah, you're an amazing woman, and I've been researching, I suppose. This interview is happening with a couple of weeks, trying to schedule it between us all busy lives. But I think I've researched a lot about both of you, and I think you're doing incredible work, and keep it up. And well done to all the volunteers in the centre and all the staff, and keep up the good work you're doing. And I wish you the very best to look in the future, and keep in touch with us, and we'll have a chat with you. Anything else to add to that?
No, thank you, Kieran, and thank you for all the volunteering that you do.
No bother. No, that's it. And thanks very much for coming in, and congratulations again to Mary Brown, volunteer support worker who won an award with Volunteer Ireland, and Helen Cullen, the CEO of the Limerick Children's Grief Centre in Limerick. Thanks very much for joining us on the show today. Thanks.